Good morning, good afternoon. I guess it's afternoon. I'm still on the wrong time frame, I think, as is everyone. It's good to see everybody. We have a lot of information to go over with you today. I will do my best to try and answer questions. However, if we don't get to them during our presentation, I want to be respectful of everybody's time. If I'm not able to get to everyone's question, we'll definitely follow up with you individually, or if there are lots of the same questions, we'll send out a frequently asked questions email blast to everyone later on. So I don't want you to think if we don't get to your question that we won't follow up with you about that. But there are lots of things going on that I wanted to share with you all. So we'll go ahead and get started. We have a little bit of a PowerPoint just to keep me on track, frankly. We've got quite a few things, so we'll just look on this is an outline of our agenda. So we're going to talk a little bit about our COVID-19 supports, how they're continuing. We'll talk about some announcements regarding school readiness funding that I think you'll be pleased with for those of you in the school readiness program. We're going to talk about this school readiness program assessments, Dpk Progress Monitoring Pilot Project, some options for January and summer VPK and some data that maybe can help you make some decisions, information about preschool development grants that we have received from the Office of Early Learning, and then just some additional housekeeping announcements about resources and things to share with you. And like I said, I've got lots to share on each of those topics, and we'll get to questions as well, but feel free to ask questions in the chat box throughout the process if you have something pertinent to the topic at hand, and we'll try to get to those. Okay, and with that being said, we'll jump right into our provider support. So those of you that applied for Phase 3 CARES grant, if you were not eligible, I've already given you a phone call and let you know. For those that were eligible, I know you are waiting with bated breath for your funding. What has happened is that we had more eligible qualified providers than OEL had given us funding for. So OEL does have the funds available, but they have to first award it to us. Then we have to bill them for it, and then we'll have the money to grant back to you. I'm hoping by the end of next week that we will have that, but we really are just waiting on OEL to allocate those funds to us. So it's kind of a waiting game, but I appreciate your patience with us. We know we want to get these funds out to you as quickly as possible. It's just that it's good for us. It means there's more money coming to Seminole County than they thought, but it does mean that there's a little bit more of a delay. So I apologize for that, but wanted you to know that that was still happening. And we will do those funds through direct deposit like we do your regular payments, and you'll be able to tell it'll come at a different time than your regular payments. So you'll know that that's for the CARES grant. And if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to walk you through that. Now the Phase 1, 2, and 3 CARE grants you could only apply for one of the three, or you could only be eligible for one of the three grants. OEL is in the process of looking at a Phase 4 grant process. I have no details at this time other than they are looking at making this essentially a second round, meaning you would be eligible this time around even if you got a Phase 1, 2, or 3. The dollar amounts, they're running out of CARES funds, and since the federal government hasn't allocated more, it's not going to be as big as those initial award amounts, but they are looking for a second round of CARES funding, knowing that many of you are struggling with enrollments right now and with additional costs due to, protective equipment that you're having to buy and additional sanitation requirements. So I just wanted you to know that's in the works. As soon as we know about it, we'll let you know and open the door to those funds. It will probably be a similar grant application where there's a simple grant that you'll fill out for us, and then we'll have to go through our approval process and then the release of the funds. But I wanted you all to know that that was in the works. Sometimes it helps just to know that it's possibly coming. I wanted to talk a little bit more about COVID-19 and temporary closures. We are having across the county the occasional closure and related to COVID-19. So a teacher or a student in the classroom tests positive. One thing that's really great is I'm hearing from the health department that they're not asking centers to close the whole center down. So congratulations to you all, because what that means is you are applying those CDC health guidelines well. And what that means is you're not putting everyone in your center at risk of being exposed to COVID-19 because you're keeping kids in those little pods. So that's really great to hear, and I think it's probably nice for you all to hear as well, that although we are having some positive cases, your adherence to those CDC guidelines, hand washing, sanitation, all the things that you're doing seem to be helping, because we haven't in quite some time had an entire center have to close down. So that's a really, really good news. And I know it's really good not only for the children that come to your centers every day, but also to the parents who need to go to work and have a place to take their kids. So if you have a temporary closure and you're a VPK only program, if the health department says for whatever reason that they want you to close the whole center down, I still need you to email me directly at jgrant@seminoleearlylearning.org, because I report that to the state, the Office of Early Learning, and to DCF if there's a whole center closure. If you only have a class or a couple of classes that have to close, for example, if you have a 3-year-old that tests positive and the school ager, you may have exposure in 2 different classrooms if they're from the same family. So if you have multiple closures, the 80-20 rule applies. So what's happening now is that we're paying for children when they attend, and we will pay up to 20% absences in that month. At the end of the year, if you don't miss any more than 20% of the absences of those available days, and I believe that started in October through the end of your program, May or June, if you don't use more than 20%, we will pay you for those absences as a reconciliation at the end of the year as well. I've had some providers call because of a closure and ask if they have to change their calendar. This is really a provider choice right now. It's up to you to decide if you need to revise your calendar. At this time, most programs are saying we'll take those, usually it's 10 days now, we'll take those 10 days as absences. A couple of things for you to consider as we move forward. Of course, we all hope that the cases of COVID-19 and the positive cases go down, but in case there is an uptick in those, consider the following things when you're deciding whether or not you want to revise your VPK calendar. The first piece is impact on families. If a family signed up for your program and it's a Monday, Wednesday, Friday program, for example, and you have to add a longer day, or they were only coming until noon every day, and now you need to add on a half an hour, is that a negative impact on your families? Are they going to have to get different transportation? Is there going to be a problem with their after VPK care arrangements? So think about the impact on families. Think about whether or not the children in your class are making progress towards being ready for kindergarten. Are they on track with the domains of learning that you would expect to see at this point in the year? If your children are struggling, and I would venture to guess because of the way last year has occurred, that you might have some kids that maybe aren't on track. You may want to consider that. And then also the future closures. Because if you have one child that causes a closure right now, and then in January you have a different child in the class that causes a closure, and then later on in the spring you have another child, at some point you're not going to be giving those children enough instructional time to help them get ready for kindergarten, and you may need to revise your calendar. So it's truly your own choice. We cannot pay more than 20% absences, but you have to offer the course, 540 hours. So it's okay to take those as absences, but just consider those pieces as to the decisions that you make if over time you have more temporary closures and you may need to change your calendar. We will work with you on what that looks like, but we wanted you to kind of take a look at all of those different considerations, because every group of families that you're serving is different, and some may really need those additional hours, and others may say, if we're going to be quarantining at home anyway, we'll work on the activities that you give me at home and we'll be on track when we come back. So it's up to you to make those decisions. So we'll jump on to the next slide, unless we have any major questions. I'm looking. Okay. Related to school readiness temporary closures. This is another hat that we wear. The Office of Early Learning has put into place They haven't trained us on it yet, so it's not on, but we wanted you to be aware that they're going to have providers entering temporary closures. So we anticipate within the next week or two, you will get an email blast, probably from OEL, and then again from us. We usually duplicate them, to let you know that there will be a training on how to enter those temporary closures. So rather than having to call us, you can just enter it in the system and we'll be able to see that. I appreciate it when you call us anyway or let me know, because we then can be prepared if a family has to transfer or is supposed to be quarantining. It helps us guide families if they call our office, if we know what's going on at your center. But that is coming, so be aware of that. I wanted to talk through October absences. I know those are due, what is it, by the third business day. So by tomorrow afternoon, I believe, or end of business day tomorrow, your October attendance is due for both school readiness and Dpk. But the guidance that was sent out showed that the Office of Early Learning is using what they're calling a dimmer switch approach to transitioning from paying for enrollment to moving back to paying for actual attendance. And what we've been able to work with the Office of Early Learning, and they took our considerations, our recommendations into consideration, and looked at taking October and allowing the 3 excused absences that are always allowed every month for school readiness, 7 absences that would be required with a note. However, right now we don't require any notes due to the pandemic. And then they added 6 disaster absences that you would use. So your first 3 absences, if the child wasn't there on October 1st, 2nd, and 3rd, you would have to put an E. The next 7 absences, you would put an A, and then final 6 absences, you would put a D. Any other times, any other days that would have been payable days that the child did not attend in October would be non-reimbursable days. So if you put them down as an absence, we're going to change it on our side. It takes a little longer to process, but we have to do it that way. So you will not get paid for every day of enrollment, only for up to 16 absences for October. I'm sorry, my puppy is not happy. What the plan is to move to, that dimmer switch is to move then into November and to have 4 additional absences for disaster. And then in December, it would be 2 additional absences. And by January, that dimmer switch would move into the regular 10 days of absences that the school readiness program allows each month. So right now, the reason that I didn't put all of that out and we haven't sent it is that we still need the governor to extend the executive order. That executive order that allows an emergency allows us to pay for those extra disaster days because he's declared a state of emergency in the state of Florida. I believe it's towards the end of this week, the 4th or the 6th, the current executive order expires. And we do anticipate that the governor will extend it another 60 days, just due to, you know, the struggling nature of businesses and everybody that are having to deal with this right now. So we anticipate that he will do that, but I can't announce formally that you will get 4 extra days in November, really officially, until we get that executive order in place. And hopefully then by the end of November, we'll know that we can do the same in December. But I wanted to let you know that that's kind of how things are working. The parent fees have officially been waived through December. So for school readiness parents, you do not have to collect parent fees, and the Early Learning Coalition will be paying those fees through December. That's coming from a federal regulation rather than the executive order, so we don't have to wait on that. We can tell you that those are covered. So you can help your families plan a little bit. In January, the intent is, again, if nothing else changes between now and then, the intent is that the parents would start to pick up those parent fees again in January at this time. If we kick
Jennifer, we lost your sound. Jennifer, are you able to hear us?
Can we wave?
No, she's checking now. Welcome to the virtual world, everyone. I will say if you signed in a little bit late, once we started, if you have not typed your name and the center you're from in the chat box, now's a great time for you to go ahead and sign in the chat box. And it looks like Jennifer is trying to connect right now. You're muted. Let's see. You need to unmute, Jennifer.
There we go. I was testing lip reading skills. Okay. I don't know what happened. Too many of us. So let's see. Where did I stop? Executive order or parent fees?
It was executive order.
Executive order? Okay.
Right at parent fees. Waive through December.
Okay. So the parent fee, thank you. Sorry about that. The parent fees are waived through to December because they are, the approval for that came through the federal Child Care Development Block Grant. So we don't have to wait on the executive order to be able to tell parents that the parent fees are waived. So you can let them know, and the intention would be that in January, parents would start to pay their parent fee again, provided that nothing else happens. If something else happens and parents are prepared to pay them and then don't have to, great. But we didn't want to surprise families by not charging parent fees for 6 or 8 months and then giving them only 2 days notice. So the intent is to let families know now that they will start paying parent fees again in January. Another piece of the provider supports and the school readiness program is that we should be in a typical time frame. If you don't hear from a school readiness family for 5 days, that you would reach out to that family and let the coalition know. If there's no contact, meaning they did not attend, you haven't heard from them after 10 days, we would reach out from the coalition and determine if they still need the school readiness program. The intent is that if the family doesn't need it, we want to move in a family that can use the program. Of course, during the pandemic, we kind of put a hold on all of that, knowing that families were making health decisions based on their children. At this time, we need to encourage all of you as school readiness providers to start contacting your families. What we will be doing in the next couple of days is we'll send out an email to you with a form, because we know how many children you could have to contact. And we'll give you a form that you can just upload to the share file to let us know that when you looked at your October attendance, you saw that the 3 children from the Smith family had not been there. You reached out, you tried to call mom, maybe you emailed mom as well. You have not heard back from her. Then you pass that on in that form to us, and we will reach out to the family as well. Our intent is that we've been paying for enrollments instead of attendance. As we start to that dimmer switch approach and we stop paying for enrollment, if those children don't come, you're not going to get paid. And we want you to make sure that we're able to either encourage the family to come back, determine if they have eligibility issues we need to address, if they're eligible for a break in service or need a new referral from their referring agency. We want to work with those families and get them back into your center. And every situation is different. So we want you to reach out to the family first. Let us know what's going on, then we'll reach out to the family and work through what's available. Our intent is to keep families in the program if they need it. But we'll talk in a little while about our funding and where we are with our wait list. And we want to make sure that families that truly are going to use your program are enrolled through the school readiness program. We also don't know if there's a family that's moved out of state, and here we are still using Florida funds to pay for that child when there could be one that really needs it coming to your center instead. So we want to try and make sure that you start making contact with those families that have not been attending and let us know where things are with those families. And we'll send more details on the instructions when we send the form out to you, but I wanted everybody to know that that was coming and that we need your help in coordinating that with the intention of keeping everybody in the program that's eligible to stay in the program. That's our goal. I wanted to let you all know that our essential service worker referral program is still continuing. As of the end of September, I just pulled some data. 79 school readiness providers have essential services referrals, so you're serving those families with essential workers. That's really critical during this time. And we have about 625 enrollments, according to my EFS mod report. I don't know if I trusted 100%. Maybe some of those have started to roll off, but that's a lot of families that are being served through that program. And those are CARES Act dollars that are paying for them to be in care. We will continue that program, provided the executive order is extended and the families continue to get referrals from their employers. Just a reminder, if their referral is about to expire, they have to get the referral through their employer and get it to us so that we can extend them. We are not taking any new families on that program. So if there are new workers, if somebody just got a job as a nurse for the first time, we're not able to take any new referrals, but we can continue to serve those who are on the program. We're also continuing to pay those bonuses. So if you have an essential services worker and you have not reached the maximum bonus amount of $12,000, we are continuing to pay those bonus amounts, no more than $4,000 a month and no more than $12,000 total. So I just wanted folks to know that those dollars were still coming your way as well right now. Right. Okay, I'm just checking questions. Thank you for those of you who have completed our survey on the clear mask distribution. If you have not completed it, please go back in your email blast or in ShareFile and look at the link for the survey. We've had 110 responses already. We do have the masks at our office now. Our next step is to create, based on your response to that survey, we compare it to the QPS system and to your VPK and CCR&R list. We're going to compare those numbers so that we're giving everybody the proper amount of masks. And we will email you a materials distribution form and an invitation to pick up the masks at the ELC. We're doing that kind of like we've done distribution of other health and safety materials. We'll kind of set it up where everybody's using masks and you stay in your car and just kind of drive through. We'll put it in your vehicle, have the least amount of contact possible. And if we email that form to you, then we don't even have to have you can print it and sign it and bring it with you on that day. So we'll just have you drop it in our distribution box that we come around to hand it to you, and we'll give you the material. So we're trying to streamline that, again, keeping social distancing in mind. There are also materials that will come to you that you can duplicate, you can put up in your center, you can share with your teachers on the value of being able to see, particularly for young children with social and emotional development and language development, that we want kids to be able to see your faces. So the materials are great to share with parents as well so that they understand when they're with their children why it's valuable for their kids to be able to see their faces. It's a really great learning opportunity. So we'll be getting those out to you. That should be coming in the next week or so. If you have any trouble with transportation or limited staff, those kinds of things, we will work with you. We'll send you an email invitation. And if you have any barriers to coming at the time that we recommend or that we've scheduled you for, just let us know. Our intention is to try and make this as smooth as possible. But obviously with 110 centers that we're going to try and get these out to, it's a lot of labor on our part. So we want to make it as smooth as possible for everyone and not have you wasting your time waiting in a queue. So hopefully we'll keep working on that. We did get a thank you actually from the infant mental health group that we made the largest purchase in the state of Florida for clear masks. So just kind of to let you know that they recognized how we were valuing this in the social and emotional development of children. And so I thought that was kind of neat. School readiness funding. So this is kind of exciting. We have been focused so much on COVID-19 and delaying things and pushing things out that we did not talk about the fact that during legislative session last year, the state legislature allocated money to work through and bring families off of our waiting list. So they allocated the amount of money that was there, and this was across the state. Seminole County got $605,000 more towards the school readiness program, so over $500,000 to help serve children from the waiting list. They're using the waiting list as of July 31st as kind of that date. And I will share that we were able to send out invitations last week to all of the families that were placed on the wait list in August. So we're moving quite quickly to bring those families in. But what these dollars allow us to do is serve more families than we did before. Of course, we don't know exactly how many, because if they're all infants, we serve fewer. If they're all 5-year-olds or school agers, we would serve more children because of the cost of care. But the good thing is that the legislature recognizes the need to get as many families who are eligible into the school readiness program. In addition, they allocated funds for a statewide provider increase. This is an analysis that the state of Florida is doing. They're looking at provider rates across the state. They're looking at the cost of living. It may be more expensive to live in Miami, downtown Miami, than it is to live in Ocala, for example. So they're looking at the cost of living in each of those areas. They're looking at rates. They're also looking at the cost of care. So how much does it cost for a family with an infant and an 18-month-old compared to a family with an infant and a 4-year-old? So they're looking at cost of care in lots of different methodologies, and this consultant is going to assist Office of Early Learning in determining how much we will be able to provide statewide and how much that'll look like in Seminole County specifically in a provider rate increase. We do not know when that's going to roll out, but I just wanted you to know that it's coming. There's a chance that they'll give money towards infants and toddlers more than they'll give towards school agers, or they'll give more towards 4-year-olds, depending on where those deficits are compared to the market rate. But I wanted you to be aware that all of the work, I know many of you have contacted legislators in the past. We're gearing up for legislative session again next spring. But all of the work that everyone does in letting the legislators know about the value of the services you're providing in the community turned into this kind of allocation of funds, which was pretty exciting. So I wanted you to know that was coming. All right, we have had a delay for a number of months in our school readiness program assessments. Our program assessment is the class assessment that we do on site in person. The state is now requiring, they are not waiving class assessments any longer. As a matter of fact, they stopped waiving class assessments as of July 1, but none of us statewide were quite ready to roll out having folks back in your center, but it is coming. So in the next couple of weeks, we are starting with our priority of those of you who are on a 1920 contract extension. We need to give you an assessment and get that composite score so that we can issue you your 2021 contract and move forward. So that's our first priority. Our second priority are those of you who previously were on an exemption because you had fewer than 20% school readiness children enrolled in your center. And if that has increased and you now have 20% or over, you are now eligible and required to have a program assessment. So that would be the next group we would be reaching out to. And then the final would be anyone that's due for the annual or biennial assessment, meaning you scored high enough to get one every other year, but it's time, or you missed your annual last year, or you missed your annual so far this year, because of course, we're already at the end of October, beginning of November, and are still working on these. A couple of things just as reminders. The assessor will call you with a 2-week window. You can block up to 3 dates. So if you have picture day, or you have, I don't know if anybody's doing field trips right now, but if you have something special planned that you would prefer not to have an assessor in your classroom on that day, you can, from that 2-week window, select 3 dates to block. We will be following safety protocol. At this time, we're looking at face masks, of course, social distancing, hand washing or hand sanitation, depending on the availability of soap and water, in the classroom, and really any other safety protocols that you have in place. So if you'd like everybody's temperature to be checked before we go into the classroom, we will follow that protocol that you offer. So when the assessor calls you, just think about that so that you're prepared to tell the assessor what will be expected when they come in. We're even looking at shoe covers when we go into infant and toddler classrooms. So we're not tracking in anything in classrooms where we know the kids are on the floor a lot during the day. Please continue to notify us of any COVID-19 outbreaks. Unless you have an outbreak in that classroom or that center, we have to still fall within that 2-week window. We don't have a whole lot of opportunity. And the health department is also coordinating with us. So if someone is out but did not expose anybody in the classroom and they're not asking you to close the classroom, we have to kind of keep moving forward with these assessments. We have a lot to do this year and a much shorter time frame to get this in, but this will stop you from getting your 2021 and potentially your 21-22 contracts if we don't get these done. So we want to make sure that we get these scores in place and give everybody the opportunity to do this. Just a reminder that this year for the 2021 contract, you have to have a composite score of 4.0 or higher. If you have a 3.5 to a 4.0 or a 3.5 to a 3.99, you would be eligible for a contract with a quality improvement plan. So there will be some trainings that you are required to take. Please, please encourage your staff to take advantage of all of the professional development resources that we have. The MMCI, if you have new staff, and I know many of you have had staff transitions during this pandemic, if you have staff that have not had MMCI or taken advantage of the trainings that we have, get them started before we have to come in and do this assessment. We want your staff to be successful. And so if we can provide opportunities for your staff to get that training before we come in, they can use those resources to put those best practices in place and score high on the class assessment. So we really want you to be successful and want your teachers to be successful. The other piece that I'll let you know is we are working on what type of stipends we will be able to afford this year to give teachers who take these trainings. For the past couple of years, we've cut some pretty big checks to teachers who have taken MMCI for infant toddler or MMCI for preschoolers. Some of the other training opportunities, the Lastinger Center Early Learning Florida courses, there was some funding available for that. This year, the state has not given us funding for these program assessments. So having the assessors come in is on the coalition's dime. That's the money that we normally use for stipends for teachers. Our hope is to be able to continue to offer those, but I will tell you in the future years, you may be required to have your teachers attend these trainings and no stipends will be available. So I'm encouraging you to have your teachers take this when they have to voluntarily, where we can give them some financial incentive to take the courses, rather than waiting until they have to take it and we don't have any funding available for that. So just something to consider and share with your teachers, because we really do want to incentivize their time and we want them to have the skills to put those best practices into place. Dpk Progress Monitoring Pilot Project. I know many of you received information from the Office of Early Learning about this. It's a voluntary 2-year project using the STAR Early Literacy Assessment. The applications are open until November 11th, so we've only got a week or so left. You have to be in good standing with the ELC, so you can't be on a corrective action plan. You can't have had any Class 1 violation within the last 2 years. And you have to offer an August through May, a full school year program to participate in this. I have a frequently asked questions form and flyer. We'll send these out later on today, some flyers and some backup information just so that you have all of this, but it talks more about the program. As of today, I had, let's see, 19 Seminole providers have applied so far. There's enough space for 1,900 statewide. So the coalition will go through a screening process first, just to determine if you're in good standing, the Class 1 violations. Once OEL closes this, then OEL will select the final providers that will be able to participate in this. And the hope is that you're actually using the same tool from 4-year-olds all the way up to through kindergarten, and I think they're using it through 2nd grade even, this STAR literacy, so that we'll have consistent data of how children are doing getting ready for kindergarten, specifically with the literacy component. So it's a neat opportunity and will be free. OEL is paying for this. The frequently asked questions talks about what kind of technology you need to have available to do this. So there are some things to kind of take a look at, but I highly recommend anybody, any VPK provider that's interested in this, throw your hat in the ring. There were some webinars that OEL had just walking through it, and I think they're even recorded, so you can go back and watch the webinar. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out, and we'll send that additional information out. But I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that this was available to them. All right, Dpk program options. We've been looking statewide at the number of children because of the pandemic that had a VPK certificate they got probably last February or March, and they never actually enrolled or started a VPK program. Right now, we have 109 VPK age students that are in school readiness, but they're not enrolled in a VPK class, but they're of the proper age to qualify. So we're going to dig into that data a little bit and try and find out why those families are at a school readiness program, but are not using those VPK dollars allotted to their family. In addition, we have some data just comparing how we're doing as of this year compared to the number of VPK children that we had enrolled last year. So there are almost 1,300 fewer children enrolled in VPK classes right now than were enrolled last year at this time. So what that tells us is that there may be some families that have a certificate that they're sitting on. And we wanted to share that with you because you could have the opportunity to open a VPK class that might be a 6-hour-a-day class from January through May or the first week of June. You could also wait and reach out to those families and look at a summer program. One of the things that we're going to try and do is statewide, we're looking at how we can reach those families. If we have their contact information, we want to be able to reach out to them and say, did you know there are January programs available? I'm telling you this now so that you have a chance to consider if you would like to or have the capacity to open a January class. We'd like you to do, if you're going to do that, we'd like you to do it, notify us sooner rather than later and work through that process so that when we market these, we're marketing all available options to families and we can get some more children back into your centers. So if January doesn't work for you, you could then go to a summer program. You have the option to still sign up for a summer-only VPK program. Remember that summer-only program still has to have a teacher with a bachelor's degree or higher, but we can work with you on that option and make sure if you've never offered summer program before, what the qualifications are. I saw a question pop up, so let me see. Can you open a class that's just half a year VPK? It has to make the 540 hours. So if you open a January class, that class still has to offer 540 hours. So we can't approve a class that would start for just half the VPK year. You have to open one that we have to make sure that when a family enrolls, that they have available to them full 540 hours. All right. So just keep that in mind, and we're here to, Lori and Sandy are here to help with that piece. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. But we just want to make sure that we're offering every option available to those kids that are 4 years old and living through this pandemic. Another question was, can a student enroll into an existing VPK class? Yes, they can. You can take a family, even in January, that's in an existing class, as long as you're not going over your enrollment amount. That's called a delayed enrollment. So the family is going to have to sign off on their certificate that they understand by opting into a program that started in September or in August and they're just joining the course in January, that they understand they're not going to be able to get a full 540 hours. They're essentially signing their certificate understanding that they have a delayed enrollment. In normal years, we have that happen all the time. Somebody moves in from another state in December and just starts in January. So that happens. They can get signed in, but you can't open a new class to serve children only half a year without 540 hours. Hopefully that's clear. Thank you. All right, preschool development grants. So we've got some neat opportunities. The state of Florida applied to the federal government for a comprehensive preschool development grant that was about $13 million a couple of years ago. They went through that process. They got an extension on the grant, so they got the second round of grants for the state of Florida, and then the pandemic hit. So they had applied with all of these different things in place, and of course have had to pivot a lot with what they originally said they were going to do. And what's come out of this is there are a number of initiatives at the state level, but the first two that we're involved with is the mental health mini grants, essentially. It will be available to both school readiness and Dpk providers. We're going to be using conscious discipline and Flip It. Conscious discipline is a little bit longer, more intensive training. Flip It is a Devereaux created training that is a little bit shorter, but has some great information on addressing behavioral challenges and the social and emotional needs of children. We know right now that families, I don't know about the rest of you, but I think we're all feeling the stress and the pressure of living through a pandemic and having our lives upended. There's a lot of strain and stress, and we know that our little people are absorbing a lot of that from the grown-ups in their lives, as well as having to understand what's going on in their life. So we know a lot of children are struggling. A lot of adults are struggling too, let's be honest, during this time. And we wanted to use these tools as a way to enhance teacher preparation and teacher skill set. To one, be able to take care of yourself as a teacher. I've heard lots of fabulous things about conscious discipline and that you learn how to take care of yourself as well as others through that process, which I think is kind of exciting. And we know that a lot of young children, when they're feeling the stress and the pressures of the environment that we're in right now, will display their frustrations through behaviors. And if we can't recognize what their needs are, it's really difficult to address their needs and their behaviors that are going on. So part of this is a way to help you identify if you need inclusion help or if you need some additional skills in your classroom. And it's also just to make sure that we're really helping children. And through this, we hope that you're sharing this information with families to help families and children survive through this really unprecedented time. So be on the lookout. This will be completely free training, and we will go through an application process, but I wanted you to know that that's coming. It's both for school readiness and Dpk providers. When we applied to the Office of Early Learning, we had to apply with a certain priority group in place, and we'll share that through the application process. But that's kind of how we're working through this. See if I have any other notes about this one. So the other grant is the curriculum implementation piece. We were able to fund school readiness providers with new curricula, a mini grant at the end of last year for new curricula. If they had a curriculum that did not include training as a part of the purchase, then we will have a little bit of additional funding through this process to help their teachers get trained on their curricula. If it was included in the purchase price, then we would expect you to use what the mini grant already paid for. But for those that did not include it, we'll have an application process. And then we will also be using some additional implementation tools that we will offer to school readiness providers, specifically with those with class scores below the 4.0, because our intention is to help people implement their curriculum using the class framework with fidelity so that they're improving those class scores. So regardless of the curriculum you use, you can improve those class scores, which ultimately will get more money coming into your center, because the higher class scores you get, the more stipends we can provide financial incentives. So we want that to, your scores to be up to benefit the children, of course, but also your center's financial status at this time, because we know finances are really difficult. So those two things will be coming your way. Additional announcements for you. I've got, I think all of you have received this, but we'll send this out today as well. DCF Cares is now listing school readiness class scores. So when a parent is sent to DCF Cares or searches to find a provider or look to a child care center, that DCF Cares is one of the methods that we recommend and that DCF recommends when a family is looking for a new child care center. They will now have the CARES list, the class scores listed on the CARES website. So right now the website it will list if you offer before school and after school care. It'll list if you offer transportation. It will list if you're a VPK provider, a school readiness provider, if you're a Head Start provider. It just is the different things that you offer. It'll list what age groups that you serve and that your license is good for. And now it will also, it tells about violations, of course, your monitoring scores from the site visits, and then it'll list your class score. There's a flyer that's aimed at parents that helps explain what those class scores mean. So we will, I think you've already got it from DCF and OEL, but we'll send it out to you as well. It's a great tool to help parents understand where your class scores fall, what they mean, and it's a great way to market your program. If you have high class scores, that's a way to turn around and show your family all the trainings you've been sending your teachers to, and that result is this measurement. So I think it's a great tool to use for marketing and to help your families understand why you handle certain things the way that you do in the classroom, and it's a great teaching tool. So we will be sharing that with you. For those of you that are still waiting for 18-19 reconciliation, I think we're almost completely done with those that we owed money to. We are now sending out letters to providers that our calculations indicate we have overpaid. Those letters are going out via email. Our first step is to have you look at the data and make sure that if we calculated that you owe us funds back, we didn't miss any children, meaning you earned those funds and we don't need to recoup funds. The next step is, after you validate the data, then we will work individually with each provider that owes funds back to start a repayment plan that is reasonable and workable for the center. So just know that we're willing to work with you if you have questions or concerns. I know our executive assistant, Karen Milligan, has been sending those out, but I'm available to discuss them with you as well. But just wanted you to know we'll work through that process. We are all really, really excited to get the fiscal year 18-19 behind us, get things tied up to the best of our ability, and move on with EFS mod working a little bit better. Wanted to give you all a heads up about a business requirement due to a law that changed last year. The state legislature passed a law last year that would require recipients of state and federal funds, which by being a VPK or a school readiness provider, you would be recipients of those funds, that you would have to use the E-Verify system, which is a federal government verification of eligibility for employment, meaning that you're hiring individuals that are eligible to work in the United States. Right now, the coalitions all have to use this when we hire a new employee. We are waiting on guidance from the state as far as what that will look like. It goes into effect January 1. So probably what it means is starting January 1, you will have to, for any new employees that you hire, it's a free service. You log on, you put in the same things that you would put on their I-9, that you document that they're eligible to work, like their social security number and date of birth, or their driver's license number and driver's license number, date of birth, social security number are usually the pieces of information. You can use an passport ID number, those kinds of things, and you enter it into the system and it gives you notice that yes, this person is federally eligible to work. Just wanted you to know more guidance will be coming, but that's coming our direction. We understand that some funders are already requiring it in the state, and we'll just have to work through what that process looks like. We'll do a training and share guidance with you, but from a business perspective, it'll be something that will be required starting in January. It's tax season again. I know it's scary to think about that, but it's this time of year when our families start to look at cash advances for taxes. And when families go to those cash advance places, they end up bringing home sometimes 40 to 50% less return money than they would have gotten if they had done the free tax preparation. So we wanted to let everybody know you can call 211. Heart of Florida United Way has 211. We'll be sending out some materials that we highly recommend that you share with your teachers and with your families about how to get their taxes prepared for free and how to qualify. But it's really, there are millions of dollars that are left on the table every year from families in Florida alone that don't take the earned income tax credit. And our school readiness families, they are working and they have young children. So they would qualify for that earned income tax credit, and yet they don't get assistance or fill out those forms, and they leave money on the table that they're eligible for. So this, in our world, the way that it is right now, everybody is scraping by and struggling. We want to make sure that our families get as much of their income back in their pockets as they are eligible for. So we'll be sending that out to you. Please, please share that, both with your staff and with your families. It is also open enrollment for the Affordable Care Act. So many families have lost insurance because they've been laid off. They've had their hours cut. They're not eligible. They now, open enrollment started November 1st for the Affordable Care Act. I have a couple of flyers that I will send out to you again this afternoon. There are free webinars through CareerSource on Wednesday afternoons. There's one on, the next one is November 18th, and then there's one the first week in December. They're an hour long, 2 to 3 o'clock, and it explains to you what would make you eligible for the Affordable Care Act. And you can go through that process to see, we want to make sure that families, if they are no longer eligible for employer-based insurance, that they have access to this Affordable Care Act and just know what their rights are. That's really the only intention, is to let them know what resources are available to them and what their rights are. So we'll share that with you as well through an email that we'll send out later today. All right. I believe, other than telling everybody that you need to make sure, as you can see from some of our team members, don't forget to vote today. I know many, many people in Seminole County, from looking at the reports, a lot of folks have voted early and a lot of folks voted through mail-in ballots, but just wanted to remind everybody that there are lots of folks besides President on the ballot, legislators that help us allocate funds for school readiness and Dpk program every year, that have helped us with a lot of the issues that you deal with our programs here through the state. So please go make your voices heard. And with that, we'll see if there are any questions. Anything? All right, everybody's exhausted, or you got up early to go vote. Thank you very much, everyone. If you have questions, please feel free to reach out to us. And with that, we'll give you back a couple minutes of your afternoon, not very many. But thank you for joining us. We appreciate it. Bye.